Welcome to the very first episode of a podcast where we explore the personal stories and professional paths of those working to make a difference. I'm your host, Margaret, and each episode I'll be speaking with people whose work drives change behind the scenes and whose journeys deserve to be heard. Today, I'm especially excited to kick things off with someone very close to me, my dear friend Veronika. Her path is so far is nothing short of inspiring, and I can't wait for you to hear her story. Veronica, you were active already during high school and continued through university, studying philosophy at King's College London. You've launched several initiatives, including co-founding one of Slovakia's largest civic efforts, who will help Ukraine at the outbreak of the war. You then pursued a Master of Public Policy at Sciences Po in Paris while interning at the OECD, one of the most prestigious international policy institutions. And now, you're back in Slovakia, working in Parliament as an MP's assistant while also contributing as a public policy analyst at Tech Institute. But let's go back to the beginning. Do you remember the moment you realized I want to work in public sector? What sparked that decision? Was maybe philosophy your way into it? And what continues to drive you today? What's your inner engine?
Thank you again for inviting me. Well, this is a great question, and I do remember this moment quite a lot because I think I always was driven to be active, and like it wasn't enough for me to just work in a, let's say, in a company where I know that the end goal is to make money. So I, even with the initiatives you spoke of course I wasn't doing them alone. It was always with a lot of great people. What I think I liked about it a lot was this feeling of impact, or of helping someone, of when you come at the end of the day and you can say like this is what I did for issues that I care about. And I think you can do this in two ways. At least that's like two basic ways in terms of sectors. And one is through NGOs, which I have been doing throughout the high school and university years. And here and there I try to help out even today. And the other one is more system oriented or systemic, and that's through public policy. And I think it was around my bachelor years in my undergrad at King's when I realized that I do enjoy working in NGOs, and I think they're like important parts of our society, and they often fill out gaps where unfortunately government don't do enough, for instance, or don't have the specialties or finances to do so. So I think these are very important actors, but sometimes they, unless you're working on in like a very huge NGO, which I usually didn't, except who will help Ukraine, that was a big one, but that was also sort of very much connected to like the urgency of the issue. But the initiatives I worked with were a team of 5, 10 people. We're always struggling to find money. We were most of us were more or less volunteering or having like little finances, but that's okay. I think that's sort of a part of it. Of course, like when you're trying to make a living, you need to have it sustainable. But I think I always had this feeling of focusing on this sort of limited group that we can impact, right? Like, so for instance, you do one of the NGOs we worked on in the university was fighting brain drain, and there we now it still continues even though I'm not there, but now it has around 400 alumni, which is great. But still, that's sort of 400 out of thousands of Slovaks who go abroad and sometimes unfortunately stay there. So I felt like I have this urgency of think of like, can we do systemic changes? Can we like set up a policy that will then, if it's set up well, impact everyone, and then I think that's what's connected also to then like choosing the masters that I did, and then trying the internships and so on. And now I feel like I still think this, so I didn't change my ideals or the core why I decided for the public sector. I still think that if you do public policy well, and if you set up the policies well, you can really change lives.
Now we are moving to the second question. And as you mentioned, you started with NGOs and then you pursued your master's in public policy. And then I think many people would be intrigued about your internship at OECD because I think that's really prestigious internship and really hard to land. Could you maybe walk us through how that opportunity came about?
Yeah, so that's funny because at Sciences where I did my master's, that's what you do. You try to get an internship either at the OECD or you do the Blue Book after European Commission, or you're trying to land something in Brussels. But like you try these big ones because that's sort of like an opening door, and then you can choose whether to stay there or not. And so there is also, of course, like a huge competition because in these universities, everyone is similar to you. Everyone did huge things, or
Yeah.
I don't want to say like I did huge things, but like everyone was super active, super smart. And you always have this imposter syndrome of like, I'm not good enough. Like, look at these people.
Mhm.
I think that was one of the biggest things at Sciences Po too, where I did had a little crisis in my second year where I felt like the university is very different to what I experienced in the UK and whether it's still good. And then I like looked around and I was like, but look at these people like who are here, like I can learn a lot from them and be inspired from them. So but that meant like with the internships, if everyone was trying to get those, right? And I have this brain which is like I'm constantly thinking and trying to like figure out the next thing, which sometimes does not work to my advantage. And sometimes I get into these spirals. But here I already like after for after 6 months at the university, I realized that everyone will trying to get this internship. I was like, how can I just try to like sort of get in there a little bit sooner? Because we did have our internship as a part of our masters, right? So our masters was a 2-year master, and you could either do a thesis or you could do internship.
Mhm.
Most people who don't want to do a PhD straight away, which, for instance, I still consider one day I want to do a PhD, but like now I wanted to go into a practice or closer to have like some work experience in public policy. Then you do the internship. So in the second year, last semester, you do internship. And I was like, everyone will try to get there then.
Mhm.
What if I try to go in summer, for instance, right? Like a bit sooner. They didn't have any positions open, and it was, I did fill up some things online, but like never, it's hundreds of people a day who apply there. So like it's very hard to make your name stand out. This goes for all the institutions. It's same if you're trying to get internship or junior position in the European Commission or in all those other institutions. So it's like, okay, like I'll just try old school Slovak reach out, because I come from a communities, especially like here in Slovakia we have Nexteria, which is like a sort of like a leadership academy where
Mhm.
like I met a lot of people who are willing to help you if you just reach out, even like big businessmen here in Slovakia or philanthropists or people. So I come from this sort of background where yes, go reach out. That's a good
Yeah.
thing. But who do you reach out to? Because like online you have webs on the website you have HR, or you can find heads of the teams, but they will not reply to me like a student. So what I did is I knew what I want to do in OECD. Like I had the specific areas that I was interested in, which was trust in institutions. That's
Mhm.
what I still research professionally at Tech Institute, and I basically just read the reports, which I like. Anyway, I was aware of them, but like now I read them really through and make like notes and so on.
Mhm.
And then uh, the heck was that in every chapter in the OECD report, I hope this will not like my ex team will not hurt this because now we'll think they will get like loads of interns, but it's good. Like do it. I think it's a good way how to get the internship. But so the heck is like in the chapters you do have people who wrote it. It's
Yeah.
not it's on the at the beginning you always have the head of the division, but the chapters also have their authors, right? And I just figured out how it's the OECD mail. It's name, last name at OECD dot
Mhm.
whatever. So I just like wrote cool email, called emails. And I wrote those authors to the specific things in the chapter, like saying what I liked, why I would like to intern them. But I was very clear that I want an internship. I wasn't just like, hi, like great chapter, and trying to like slightly get in. Like I was the title of my mail said that I'm looking for internship, but then like in the text of the email I was very much sort of
Mhm.
personalized. So yeah, so then they replied, and actually they replied in like 3 days, and like I got a call right away. and then they connected me to the head of the division, and she took me right in. But it was a small team too, so I think I was also lucky because some of my ex classmates from the masters, they were saying that it was like the process was much longer. So I think it was a combination of things, like small team, like I already knew the topic, like we clicked well, some luck was there, and so on.
Mhm.
Maybe in some bigger teams it would be harder, but this is how you can get in, just cold emails. Or I think the learning from it is, like look for the window, because
Yeah.
I did the official ways, but they would never, reply to me. Like there are thousands of applications. I think this is harder for instance, European Commission or Blue Book, because that's much more formalized. OECD is formalized too, but not as much as like some might think. And I think this goes for many institutions. Like you can find ways to get in like that through networking and so on.
So maybe just to generalize it a little bit, the advice would be find a topic, find something you're passionate about while you're studying, and then maybe try to apply it to different organizations you want to.
Oh, definitely. And
Yeah.
try to like look for opportunities in there. I mean, I understand when, because okay, so this is a paid internship, right? So there you also get some money in the OECD. But
Yeah.
for instance, take UN or other institutions where like usually the internships are either free or really like low salary. So this is advice that I can say, because I like at that point, like in Paris, I didn't mean to make money, because I had a nice scholarship, and like I also had some grants from the city and from France as a state. Sciences Po has a very nice system in this. Like they sort of have this progressive tuition fee, so they
Hmm.
set it up based on your economic background, which from Slovakia we cannot afford usually living in France, right?
Yeah.
So like most of Slovaks have a very nice setup there. But like for in London, this wouldn't work. In London, like most people need to work while they're studying. Or if they are lucky, their parents will support them. So I'm just saying, like being aware of the privilege that this is not always possible. But if it is possible, and if you do have spare time and you're interested in some topics, I think it's very nice to try to dig in, and then like reach out to the people, go on LinkedIn or try cold mailing, things like that. Or just maybe some opportunities are open in smaller things. It's also, this is not my first internship I did, right? Like I've been interning since I'm 17, and now I'm 27. So I already had a lot of experience when
Yeah.
I was going there. So I think that helped too. But you can start small. You don't have to right away go to OECD. It can be like some smaller think tank, and people like that are usually very very happy to get an active students, active young people who want to learn and have a big drive.
Uh, my question would be, and maybe people listening would be interested, that after gaining that kind of international experience, what inspired you to come back to Slovakia? What was the shift like for you, and how would you compare your OECD experience with working in Slovak politics today, for example?
No, very different. So different. Because and I've been talking to my I work for an MP now in the Slovak Parliament, and we've been talking about this together. I was telling her that I would love for politics to be a little bit like how I like learn it in school. Like how I learned it
Mhm.
in my masters, like what to do, like what data, what how to like, figure out the best way to regulate this part, and like it's driven by research and so on. But it's so not like that. I mean, like some politicians. So the professional side of politics, which you have like on ministries, or the analysts in the institutes on the ministries and so on, there it is more like that. But even there, when I talk to some of my friends there, it's like you have to have a like someone with who has the political power, let's say, who wants to do what you want to do. So it's very different, because in OECD, it's in some way it's really a research organization. There, it's one of the little organizations where it's valued if you have a PhD. It's
Mhm.
not the case in European Commission, or maybe in some think tanks, but mostly like how it's taken is like PhD, that's academia, and then like professional bureaucrats, that's a different thing. But there they didn't take it that way, because it's really sort of data driven, analytics driven. Like you really write in academic papers, although it's white papers, it's not in journals and so on, but I think the standards are very high. And I liked it a lot because that gave you like, I don't want to say answers, because like I like politics is a let's say, fight of ideas. And I think that's nice, and that's part of democracy. Like, I like pluralism, but sometimes it's sad that in our realities of Slovak politics, I feel like it's not even a fight of ideas. It's sometimes it's just, fight for power when with whatever means necessary. So it's very different, because my day to day in OECD would be like, I would be reading, and I would be, so for instance, take the topics on trust. I would be like analyzing, so what drives trust? Okay, so is it how the government communicates, or is it what they really do? And if it's what they really do, is it how they do it, or what results they drive? And it was very sort of like this, rational academic approach, and you felt like, oh, we have answers. If they do this and this, then they will raise trust, and it's in the end, it's good. Like, that's a good advice. If government is more transparent, it's one of the things that came up of the data and of the survey, and was in the publications. Like, if you have higher transparency, like if people understand how the money is spent, what you do, how you do it, if they can participate in it, you have higher trust. And I was like, okay, like trust is this sort of like indicator of what we want anyway. Like, we want more transparent government, more open government, right? Things like that. So that like gave you, I feel like that gave you this sense of like there are some answers. On the other hand, you did write these long reports. OECD standard, it's like 60, 70 pages, right? So you write it in a huge team, but still. And like, who reads it? Like, I know that now in the institute I work for, the DEC Institute, we always like we task someone to read these reports, because it like really takes time if you want to read it through. So I usually read the OECD ones on trust, and I have it as a task. So it's not, like, if you don't have someone who's usually I feel like usually it's like you're writing it for, like, you're not sure if it's ever gonna be used in a way you mean it, and so on, or
Mhm.
or if it's gonna be used. So that's a bit frustrating part on the OECD. So on this, that's very different in my job now, right? Like, whatever we do, it's really hard, and it's like sometimes I write something and I read it the other day in the media, so that's very powerful, right? But then, like, it's much more sometimes about these things around it, which sometimes I feel like are more toxic than about like fight of ideas and like really, pluralistic approach to democracy. So, things have their ups and downs, but yeah, I feel like OECD more professional side sort of, and then today's like working in parliament is it's really also about the political, which political is not always nice. Yeah, political can be like fight for power with whatever means. Yeah.
So, would you maybe say you feel that you have more freedom in this position of assistant to MP, that you can try maybe different roles as an assistant, or do you view
Oh, it's
your
much
role?
more diverse. It's
Yeah.
much more diverse, definitely. I don't think I did have more freedom. I mean, I have, it's 3 p.m. now and we're calling, so I couldn't do this in OECD, because there I was always 9 to 6.
Hmm.
It's a corporate style. I didn't have my
Yeah.
phone really, I would just sometimes check it over lunch, and like would do my work, then I close my laptop, go home, and don't think about OECD. Here, I think about politics constantly, and sometimes I call with my boss at 10 p.m. and I need to
Hmm.
go and work on something. I had
Hmm.
evenings where I needed to like cancel dinner and go work on something, but then I can have a 3 p.m. phone call, the podcast with you. So so it depends. In this sense, it's more flexible, but like
Hmm.
sometimes it's like tough days, because I'm really sort of like working right hand with someone, right? So on everything, it's much more diverse. Like here, I still do a lot of research and a lot of like policy related work, but of course we also do like meetings. I go and meet, more communal level, like mayors, and like then also other people from other opposition parties. It's sometimes I have tasks that are more sort of strategy or communication oriented, so it's much more diverse. That's I like that part about my job, I think, because yeah, sometimes I was tired for like, if you take it like 9 to 6. I say 6 because French people eat 1 hour lunch, which I don't understand. Sometimes eating my lunch next to my computer because I wanted to finish my work, right? And everyone was looking at me like crazy, like, take your lunch for 1 hour. It's like 1 hour lunch. Okay, whatever. That's just a side trivia knowledge. But anyway, sometimes for doing that for a whole week, like really just like doing research, writing, reading, writing, reading, is tiring. I mean, even in university, you don't really have just that. You have like different tasks and so on. So, and of course, like in OECD, I guess if I would be more senior, position. Like for instance, my supervisor, her role was also managing the team and like communication with the countries involved in the survey and things like that. So of course when you're hired it's different. But like for analysts, which you will be for 5 years or longer if you want to try to work in
Mhm.
these institutions, it's very mundane. It's like very so much like you read, you analyze data, you write. It's like you're doing a PhD or something, you know. It's really just that. So there, I think this is more fun. Like there are very diverse things. Sometimes tiring in a different way, but yeah, again, ups and downs and everything's.
Yeah, so it's you have more freedom, meaning it's more flexible. Every day is different. Like
I would say
it's
that
not
yes.
every day
It's
is the same
but
as
but the
compared to.
freedom part, you know, like you're not in now. I'm not really like master of my time. Like I get like it's
Mhm.
very hard to plan because when you're in opposition, you need to be reactive. So of course we plan things, and we when we have more strategy things or more, so let's say program oriented things, like things we will do in future policy related, that you can plan. Or we are now working some also with my MP on a publication that will go through the party think tank that we're planning. There we have like strategic meetings. We're talking about it. We have chapters that we're writing, so that's nice. But then since we're in opposition, always need to react. So it's really like I wake up and see the news, and based on that, I'll see how my day is. So there, I'm not
Yeah.
really. I like it's very hard to plan around this job, but you learn your way. And summer is more calm, so summer is nice.
Yeah, that was my second question. Balancing a strong academic background in philosophy and public policy with the everyday realities of Slovak politics must be challenging.
Hmm.
And now that you're working inside the system, uh, do you feel your expectations were met, or what would you maybe a message you would send to students studying, for example, politics or philosophy or public policy? Like they should prepare for like entirely something else, or
Yeah, I think it depends what you do then, because working in parliament is again like a very specific part of it. You can also work on in ministries, or you can still work in like public sector, and you have like very so because my role is very political. There are even some people even don't take me as this professional side of public policy because they think that it's like this is working for politicians. So that's like yeah, that's not this only like academic approach or only professional approach. So I think it depends also on that, like what do you do specifically. But say you decide to work for an MP, I think European Parliament is also a bit different to national parliaments from what I hear from my colleagues. It's a bit more professionalized too, in
Mhm.
a sense of like you really focus on on the issues at present, on the policies, and on the amendments you want to do, and so on. Of course, you do communication too, and so on. But I feel like it's a bit less focus on this. Like how we also it depends like on the party, right? Because so I work for Progressive Slovakia, right? Progresivne Slovensko, and they're in the European Parliament. They're in a coalition in a sense, right? Like they have power there. So of course, so that's different too, because here we're in the opposition. But I guess what I would say is like I'm not that surprised. I think it's just the sort of like reality checks that sometimes politics is also all about these let's say different things that just like what the data say, what the research says, and what of course what people want, of course that part. It's also about like you need to find the disinformation campaigns, you need to fight these narratives that are not necessarily true, and so on, of course. But I guess that's not that surprising. I think you learned that throughout the masters too. Like we learned this in my master too, and I was actually prepared for it to be much worse. I think. Like I thought that it's gonna be 2 years soon that I'm in this position, and I thought that and after 2 years I will not want to do it so much anymore because it will be so toxic environment, and I thought that a lot of my ideals would be broken down, even the ideals for the party I worked for that I had.
Mhm.
So I'm not like part of the party, right? But I work for them, and like I see a lot of things inside. And I actually there I'm like very pleasantly surprised. Like it's calming me down that like this is a party that I would probably choose anyway. Like the like internally, like a lot of the things are set up very nicely, and the people are very nice. It's like there are not that many surprises that I thought that there would be. You know, it's how they say that you don't want to meet your idols, you know, like
Mhm.
when you have some idol or something
Yeah,
and you don't want
yeah,
to meet them for so that's what I was thinking when I was taking this job, because I was deciding whether to stay in Paris and continue to OECD or go here. I was like, maybe, now I will meet my idols because this is a party I also voted for, and
yeah.
I like very much. Otherwise, I wouldn't work for them. And I was like, maybe no, then I will be so sort of disappointed and discouraged that I will not want to do politics anymore. But actually, that's not true. I mean, the toxic parts come from other things, but not from the party itself, and that gives me a lot of drive because I see this, like possibility for it to change. So yeah.
Yeah.
This is a mixed answer. I don't know if you got what you wanted.
No, yeah, definitely, definitely. Thank you. Well, it's so refreshing and inspiring to hear someone talk about like this job or like starting a job after university and actually enjoying it, loving it. Because I feel like everyone that is starting university is full of ideals, and then the reality hits, and the job is completely different to their expectations. So it's really nice to hear that someone is actually enjoying, loving what they're doing. So.
I am. I think otherwise I wouldn't do it, because we people my age, and so we do have options. You can go back abroad and things like that. So I think otherwise I wouldn't do it. And of course it's not all um all great or all roses. Like of course you have some challenges, but I think it's really good. I think it's a very very nice opportunity or thing to do for people who want to go close to politics but not yet in politics yet, or right away themselves, but like want to see it. And I think working for some politician, either in the national parliament or in the European Parliament, I think can be very nice window into the reality of the policy making, lawmaking, and also the party politics, truly, which is also another part that part you don't learn really much in masters. You learn much more sort of like national politics, things like that, but you have this old part which is like sort of politics inside the party, which is super important too. And I'm like here when I'm learning also how other opposition parties have it, or a little bit into the coalition parties, but of course like they will not let you in so much, but people talk in the hallways and so on. And like you learn these things and you're like, oh wow, it really depends how the party is structured too, and what the processes are inside, who's the leader, things like that. Of course some things are like obvious, but like it's very interesting to see it, sort of this, like they have this insider view. So yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think it's good.
yeah. So you studied in London, you studied in Paris, and you and I, we both live lives between borders, I would say. I would call it between borders because now when we are back in our hometown, we often find ourselves thinking about what it feels like to be abroad. But even here at home, it doesn't always feel entirely like home because part of us stayed in that other place, like in for you, for example, in London or Paris. How does that in between feeling shape your work, especially in a sector where you're trying to drive change?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I mean like I was, well, so it's altogether 5 years, right? And then you had COVID and things like that. So of course it wasn't like I was home throughout that 5 years too. But you are settled somewhere else, and you have, I think, like important part is you have like life there with friends, people, like things you do, rituals, and so on. So it's always a change when you move cities. And I think coming back home, like it was a little bit, it wasn't hard to adjust because like I knew people here and friends still back from high school, or like the connections I still sort of was trying to hold on to even when on the university. So I had friends here, but like it was different. It's different when you come back than when you are
Yeah.
here for like a month or a week and you're interesting and everyone wants to meet with you,
Yeah.
like here I sort of needed to like recreate the friendships or the connections, and like focus on that, and like sort of find my rituals here, and hobbies and things I do, because it's not just work, it's like the life you have, right? But I think now I quite settled down. I think now I would be a little bit sad again for leaving. But for me, the work part or the study part is so important that I think like that sort of drives, and I think for next few years will drive sort of where I want to be. And
Mhm.
this was the case also between like London and Paris. Of course, I can tell you that like how was what was good about Paris and what was good about London and so on. And I know these things. And of course, if it would be just about like choosing the city, maybe I would choose completely different cities because both of these are quite hard to live in. Although Paris can be very romantic, but still. But I think like it's like the main thing for me is like what is the main activity I'm doing there, which for the studies it was the universities, which both of
Yeah.
them were great, and were interesting and were sort of like so pull you in that you were like it didn't matter where you are in some sense. Of course, this city is important because you then can go to art gallery or to this event and things like that, and that's beautiful. But I think for me, like it's very important also what I do. And so here, because I love my work, I also just learn how to settle here and like recreate the connections and things like that. But it sometimes I wonder, if I stay there, like how my
Mhm.
friends are and so on. I think what I do just to sort of get around that feeling is that I reach out to my ex classmates, and we still sometimes hang out. Like some of them actually next weekend, my classmates from my undergrad, so still from London, are
Mhm.
are coming over. And we'll have a weekend here in Slovakia, and we're
Oh,
going
really?
to. Yeah, we're going to nature and to high tetras and so on. So so I think that's a nice way too, because and it's sometimes I'm seeing how we're now it's just from the undergrad it's longer, right? So that's let me count, that's gonna be 4 years, right? But yeah, or something like that. But for masters it's just a year and something, because
Yeah.
I'm counting that I did the internship throughout the masters. But and you already see what these people are doing and how their lives are changing. So for instance, one of my classmates from Paris, she's American, and we stay in touch, we call every month. And so she's gonna get married and she's inviting me for a wedding, right? And that's beautiful, because then you come there,
Yeah.
and you have these like international connections, friends from all over the world, so yeah, so I think you can still sort of keep the best of the both worlds, because I think in the end it is also about people. So for me it's like what I do, the main activity, and then the people. And it's the people you lose when you change cities, but you can also keep some of the relationships and stay in touch. So I think that's what's sort of helping me.
Yes, and I feel like there is when you study abroad and you come back to your hometown for a bit or for more than a bit, you often wonder what if I stay there? Like there's sort of like a FOMO or grass is greener syndrome, but
There
I
is.
feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and that's how it
I
is.
think so too. And you can always wonder. And I think sometimes it's nice. Like I also had this around 2 months ago. I really very much like wondered how it would be if I stayed abroad and things like that. And I think it's also good to engage those thoughts. So what I did is like
Mhm.
I really sort of like sort of dive in it and was thinking about like how it would be if I would go abroad now again, and like would be working somewhere else and so on. Then I sort of compared it to what I have. I was like, no, I really I have a reason why I'm here. Like these are the things I like about my job. These are the things that are important for me. And it's not like every decision is completely definitive. Like that's how it felt for me when I was coming back to Slovakia. Like, okay, now I'm choosing just Slovakia and it will be never abroad anymore. But it's not true. Like
Yeah,
in 2 3 years time I can maybe, maybe I'll be in Brussels, or maybe I'll be back in Paris. Like
exactly.
today world is global, and I hope it will stay. Although the politics is sort of hinting towards more closed mindset, but let's hope it will stay this way it is. We're still in the EU and everything. And you can really change cities, like and experience new things. Like it's not unless you of course have commitments as our kids and like long-term partner, but even there you can figure out ways, so I think that's good to keep in mind too, like that. Yes, grass is greener on the other side, and what do you like about it compared to your job? Sometimes it is maybe a realistic need that you have, sometimes it's just like wondering. In my case
Yeah.
it was more wondering. Like in the reality I do
Yeah.
like my job, and I think that it will be hard to get such an opportunity in a big institutions, because there very much like a little piece in this huge sort of machine. Here I like really, day to day work with one person, which is very interesting. And then sort of just also give yourself a break in a sense of like, yes, this can change. Like this is not your reality forever. We're not in this like our parents and so on, where or maybe more our grandparents, but our that around that generation, we
Yeah.
used to like you work in this one thing forever, but it's not so much the case anymore. Like you really can change and you can try new things and so on. So also sort of give yourself a brief that you can try you can change it in a year or two if you don't like it still. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Now, different kind of question. Um, I know, or you told me you're mentoring one young girl, and I find that so inspiring. So my question would be, or the scenario: imagine yourself 10 years from now, mentoring the next generation of women in public service. What's one core message you would want to pass on? And what qualities are you trying to nurture in the girls you mentor today, or the girl you mentor today?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the important part in your question is women, because it is still different for females
Yeah.
uh in whatever sector, but I think in politics too. And I see this even with some of our MPs in the party, how much more hate they have just
Mhm.
because they're female. And of course that's specific to politics. In like other sectors, you'll probably not get hate messages and hate emails, and maybe as a journalist too.
Yeah.
But in other sectors, this is not so much the case. There are other challenges, and I think the ones that are sort of global, whatever the sector, are that we like we are, although we female, we work hard and so on, we often like don't want to take credit and so on. So take this example. So for instance, when you're creating a CV, right? Like usually when you compare a man and a woman and like how they write CV, like females are much more modest and they don't want to make
Mhm.
this like big things out of it and so on.
Mhm.
They do facts. They write that, okay, I worked here for this or my main task. They will not say I supervise whatever this and this. And sometimes when
Yes.
you
Yes.
read the male CV, like it's the same things that they were doing are very similar, and they like sell it very hard. I feel like we're oftentimes underselling ourselves, because I think this is like a cultural thing that we're like learned to be like sort of more modest and so on, and not be too sort
And
of.
then on the other side, when you're confident and when you know who you are in the sector, then you're called names, you're
Yeah,
still in the
that's true
company.
too.
So it's
That's true
constant.
too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Or then you're sort of like, yeah, like too like bossy, or too
Yes.
sort of yeah, like not like feminine or nice enough or something. Yeah, that's true too. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to find a balance in between that. But I do
Yes.
think like giving yourself a credit more is an important part of it. I think
Yeah.
that's what I would say. I think another thing is that um it's like I feel like this too also, although my boss is a female. I think that helps,
Hmm.
so I don't
Hmm.
have these challenges, but I hear this with some other colleagues, or in other sectors, that sometimes it's also hard for a female, that you feel like your voice is not heard, that you're sitting in a room and you say something, say in a meeting, in a strategic meeting, and you say some like feedback or strategic thing to do, and like it's not really heard. And then this is what one of my friends told me. Then like a colleague who is a male says a thing slightly different, but like the point is the same. And like
Hmm.
everyone is, that's a good idea, or
Yeah.
the men in the room are, oh, that's a good idea. And I'm like, that's so frustrating, because that's like it's a same thing, and you don't get a recognition, and there it's hard to say what to do, because especially if there is a power dynamic, that you're the sort of like a employee, or like the, I don't want to say subordinate, but you know what I mean. It's hard to say what to do, but I think you can sort of pinpoint attention to it. Probably not in the meeting right away. That will probably not help you so much, although it would be very feministic. But I think that it would not very much help you. But if you have a good relationship with your supervisor or your boss and so on, you can say things like that. Like, I feel like this was not recognized, like I said it, and so on. So stand up for yourself, I think would be a second one. Third one, and I this is probably not so much just to females. I probably this is more general to overachievers or people who are like working very hard. Is to give yourself a break too sometimes, and
Mm-hmm.
like do other activities, have other hobbies. It's not all about work. And I speak from experience because I can sometimes have a hard workaholic tendencies. I think now it's getting much better, but I did have situations where this was still in school, but like I ended up in a hospital because I was just like I was doing so much, that I didn't give myself at all break. I was a break. It was constant stress all the time, and then just a little like it was like a flu or something. But like it put me on a hospital bed for a week, and there second day they gave me I don't know how this is in English. Help me here. The infusion. You know what I
Um,
mean? We're
Ivy?
both Slovaks if this is some foreigner listening to us. But basically, they gave me these vitamins or things like that. I don't know how it's called.
No,
But
Ivy, no?
huh? Ivy, yes, yes, yes.
Ivy.
Yes, yes, yes. So they gave me that, and and I felt better. And the second day, I opened my laptop, and the doctor came in, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm working. I have this project." And remember, this is me still in school. It's not like I needed to like pay my bills or something. Of course,
Yeah.
I needed to make some money, but it wasn't that. It was just I was so hyper, motivated and focused on these things, and I felt like my self value is work. Like when I don't like perform at work, I'm not good enough or something. Which
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like I sometimes struggle with it, sort of like uh, disintegrate my work identity from my identity as a
Mm-hmm.
human person. But I feel like it's better now, and that part was crazy that I didn't give myself even like few days to rest. Like I would right away go in. The doctor like she yelled at me and she was like, if I'm crazy and if I again want to be sick, and I was like, but it was just a flu. I'm okay. And she was like, yes, but you look like you're exhausted. Like you need to rest. So I mean that's pushing it to maximum, of course. Now I don't do it. Okay, I learned my lesson, but still I would have a tendency not to like have any hobbies or sometimes cancel plans with friends to do something for work, and I think this goes for a lot of like overachievers, and sometimes in some
Mm-hmm.
institutions and some places you feel like you even must do it just to be as good enough as others. There, the imposter syndrome goes back again, and it's a trap. It's a trap. It's like you will not be happy like that, and you will not do those things for long because you will burn out. So
Yeah.
having a life, giving yourself a break, have a nice dinner with friends, do the hobby you like, watch a movie, or even this thing. Like some people are like watching series. That's it's a waste of time and so on. You should do
Mm-hmm.
something that is no,
Mm-hmm.
watch Friends. Go watch some reality
Yeah.
TV. If that's how you turn up your brain, it's fine. Like you need those
Yeah.
things too. Life is about that too. So I think that's what this would be the free ones, and that's what I see with the younger people too, especially in these sort of like hyper uh, work and engaged environments and overachieving environments. Yeah. So
Yeah, thank you so much for this because I feel like so many people are going through similar thing, but no one really talks about it because you're going through it when you're really young, and maybe your peers are not going through the same thing. And yeah, it's nice to hear maybe for also people listening who might have gone through a similar thing. So thank you for that. Next question would be related to female leadership. And what does sisterhood in leadership mean to you? How can women truly support one another in public life and political spaces that aren't always welcoming?
yeah, I, I think one of the um like sort of myths is that just because someone is a female in some leading position, that's already sort of helping feminism or helping other
Mm-hmm.
women. It does, I think, help a lot. And I'm, for instance, like quota is a difficult topic, so I don't want to be too controversial here, but they do feel like it makes sense to have idols to look up to, and when girls or younger or the next generation female leaders see see other females in certain positions, it does help. They open up the door and so on. So I think that's one thing, but it's not enough. Yeah, and you have
Mhm.
history is full of examples such like that you would have a female that's not feministic, you know, like, and she doesn't help other females. Actually, sometimes just worsen their positions and the narrative she pushes or the actual things she does in a workplace
Yep.
and so on. So I think it's like what all of us can do is, sort of these things that we were talking even before, like for instance that you see that a female wasn't recognized, or that she talks in the room and it wasn't like you notice some things of that. Like for instance, when I talked this to this friend of mine, like I noticed that too. Like it's not like she opened my eyes to, but I don't always speak up because I'm like, oh, okay, that's a separate issue. And I think that's not good, because then you're sort of just like a bystander, right? So sort of, of course you need to balance out several things, like whether you would actually help the problem or not, and so on. So maybe sometimes it's good also to speak to the woman in question too, right, first, before you go to say to a supervisor or something.
Yeah.
But if you notice some things and so on, definitely not being just bystander. If that's a valued like you've evaluated that position and you're like, okay, it's better if I don't intervene here. Okay, that's respected, right? Because that was some reasoning behind it. But I think if you notice some things being sort of like them pro equality or pro females and so on, that means sort of probably addressing it or doing something with it, right? But it is difficult, because now that I'm saying it, I'm like thinking about some other examples. You still have sexual harassment at
Mhm.
places and things like that, and there it's difficult too, right? Like um we talked about this too with other friend too, that it's sometimes the female doesn't want to be like tagged as having a tag that she's just victim of something,
Yeah.
and that's what will be with her throughout the professional career all the time, or in that specific workplace. So it's tough. So for instance, here you wouldn't want to take her agency in this. Like she would have a right to decide what to do with it, and she wants to report something and so on. So I feel like there would be much more to support for supporting her, or like talking, if you don't know the girl so much and so on. If you just heard something, it, again, you need to evaluate. But if you notice things, I think first go to the person that it is about, and then if you have means to addressing it, or if you're in a more sort of senior position, just don't overlook it. Like it's not in a sense like a rocket science. Like we all know that's happening. I think the problem is usually the bystander effect, and then just sort of like tolerating
Yeah.
these things and so on. So yeah, that was a mixed answer too. But maybe just to sum up, I think it helps to have a role models in the leading position. That's helpful. I think it's helpful, like sort of having an open eye and noticing things, so not being just bystander, and evaluate like whether you can do something. But and that would be the third, like if it's about like some specific female, probably with sexual harassment, this is the biggest one. I think going to her first is important, because you don't want to take her agency and her sort of decision power in those situations. So I think, yeah, does that make sense?
So, next question I have for you, Veronika, is what does success mean to you in public affairs? Is it defined by position, influence, long term impact, or something else entirely?
I think from like the things that I will inspire by by the question. So the thing from what you mentioned, I think it is impact, and that sort of circles back to what we started our discussion with, and that's and this is specific to me. Everyone has a different, and I think it's good when you're sort of youth and when you're still in a school and the university and things like that, sort of learn this about you, like what drives you, so for some people it will be a sort of a power, or the leading, that you can actually like change things and build things and so on. So for some people it might be more creative side things like that, and I think for me it is impact. And I to challenge this idea about myself, I throughout the university I went to private sector too for a year, just to see whether, and I went to a company which is sort of mid-sized, it's not a startup, it's already like a scale up, it's on the scale, let's say, like around 100 people, but it's not a corporate with hundreds and hundreds of people where you have all set up processes and you just go to your cubicle. It's sort of like this small size where you can still see the processes, you can be close to the supervisors and to the C-level people and so on. And there I saw that, it was an interesting environment because it was very much like full of drive and energy and so on. But I remember thinking like, this is why I do want to do public policy, because in the end of the day, we're just trying to make more money. And like there are some approaches where I have this friend back at my university years, so we had a lot of discussions about this back at King's, where so his approach was that he wants to be in business and like make a lot of money, and then invest those in charities and in NGOs, right? And that's basically this effective altruism, right?
Mhm.
And that because he focuses on where he can make the most money or the most resources, and then basically he will in the end probably help more people than I. Although policy, you can argue that's more systemic. But if I would be working in an NGO, right? Like my target group would be, I know, up to some thousands of people, hundreds of people, whereas he will support multiple NGOs. And in that way, he will have bigger impact. This is what he was telling me, is to challenge me, like that if I could be, and it's also his approach in life to for real. That's what he's doing, and he already had a successful startup that he sold and so on. So he is an inspiration, but yeah, when he was telling me this, I felt like this it's super cold, sort of yes, and he also is driven by impact, and he sort of challenged my position that you cannot do the be in a private and have a sort of impact. He did that, but like I felt like in private sector, but I felt like, I don't know, like I wouldn't enjoy it. Like I want to do it right away. I want to work on those issues, things like that. I feel like that's what gives me drive, and I think it's important to know this about yourself and sort of question those things and so on. I think sort of for me, it's also being part of the thing that's making impact, that's important for me. So not only having impact, but also being part of the like design of the change, right? Being in that NGO, or being part of the policy making and things like that. So but that's everyone has that different, and I think it's important you know this about yourself. So compared to that friend of mine that I've been just mentioning, for him it's much more important that at the end of the day he can say he had the most impact, which in fact will be true. Like it's true that he, because he will be supporting, he will be this philanthropist supporting all these institutions, all these organizations. Like in the end, like if you just count it effective altruism way, you see it's more people in the end. But for me, I wouldn't be happy. It wouldn't be a happy life for me. So yes, it's impact, but it's impact that I'm part of the solution. I'm there. I'm like, it's hands on. Like my hands are in the part as a part of the solution.
Thank you. The last question. If you could sit down with your younger self, just starting out at King's College, what would you say to her?
I wanted to say, have breathe and take things slowly. Like things will come. You don't need to like overshoot things. But in that age, like I wanted to do it. I wanted to try. I wanted to burn myself and like see that. Okay, you need to also have hobbies and so I think you need to go through those things. But yeah, I think sort of just not being in this hyper stress of like, if you can manage everything and so on, like things will come in life, like everything, now, like going close to 30s, like there are other things in life that everyone is pressuring you about, maybe more sort of like on the personal life side and so on. Will you settle and things like that? And that's again like what's sort of like giving you the subtle stress all the time. So I'm trying to tell myself now the same thing, like it will come. Like you're now focusing on this, and things will come in time. Like you didn't need to have figured out everything right
Yeah.
there. Like if you're focusing on what you like doing, if your day to day makes sense to you, if you're happy, you have a fulfilling life. Of course, there will be, areas in your life that could be better, and that's like, it cannot be perfect. Like there will be bad days and sad days and everything. But if the sum of it or overall, it's it's like good, and you're doing what you like, you're spending time with the people that's meaningful to you, the activity is good, you're learning and growing, and you feel like it has an impact, or it makes sense to you. I think just continue, go on that journey, like breathe while you're doing it, and like the things, they will come.
Thank you, Veronica, for your time and for such an insightful conversation or interview. And to everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed the episode and will tune in again soon for more. Thank you.
Thank you.